This talk that I gave on career game actually started almost like 10 years ago with me teaching at Stanford. And what happened at that time was I started teaching at Stanford in product management, and I had a lot of students asking me about tips on career and things like that. And so I started basically giving advice to folks in terms of how they should manage their career. And then one of my students said, why don't you actually put this together in a whole list of things? And so I put in a list of things, and he was like, can you give a talk? And so he invited me to a presentation at Santa Clara. And so I put this together. And then it became a really interesting kind of talk, because I got a lot of feedback from a lot of people saying, hey, you should share this more. And so now this has become part of my course at Stanford. So I teach a 6-week course at Stanford on product management, and then one of the sessions is basically on career planning, career management. And I call it the career game. And the reason is, if you think about it, managing your career is also like, really a very interesting game. The problem is that nobody has explained to people what the rules of the game are. How do you play the game? What are the rules? How do you know the rules? How do you bend and break the rules, right? So for instance, if you think about it, say you're playing a game of soccer, but you have no idea of how the game is played. And there's this, you're outside on the field, and your coach says, go onto the field, right? And you're on the field, and everybody's kicking the ball around. So you start kicking the ball around for everybody. And the guy says, no, kick in this direction. So then you kick in that direction. And then you start to kind of figure out the rules. And then you get, really sophisticated about the rules. Then okay, now I've got a free kick, and I've got this wall, and I want to bend the ball around the wall, right? And so you get really better over time, because now you understand the rules. You understand how you can, you understand that you cannot hold the ball and throw it, and you can, kick the ball. And you can also not only understand the rules, you can bend them, and sometimes you can actually break the rules as well when the referee is not looking. So that's the whole point of this talk. Is it's a game, and the first step is understanding what the rules are, and then how do you actually take those rules and then use them to your advantage. So this is a little bit about myself. I've had the good fortune of living and working in India and Singapore, Hong Kong. I've been in the Valley since 2000, just around the .com bust. And I've had the great fortune of working with big companies like HP, Amazon, which was not as big as that time, and then like a 2-person startup, which was Ouya. And Ouya was basically two of us launching the company on Kickstarter. And the goal at that time when we launched the company was we want to raise about $1 million and just prove the idea. And the idea was, can you build a game console that's based on an open platform? So we took Android and we said, let's put Android on a game console, put it onto a TV, and open up the whole market for any developer. So we launched on Kickstarter asking for $1 million. We got to our $1 million in the first 24 hours. And then by end of the campaign, we had $8 million. So you can imagine two people, literally I was sitting in my pajamas when the thing launched, and we got $1 million in 24 hours, and $8 million. And the crazy thing about Kickstarter is that the money shows up in your bank at the end of the Kickstarter campaign, and you can do whatever you want with it. It's just crazy stuff. So that was an awesome experience. And even now when I think about it, it's a surreal experience, because you've seen those ads on TV where you launch the website and numbers go up. It was exactly like that. You hit F5 and the numbers are going up by hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Complete insanity. But the point here is, not the stuff that I've done, but there's a lot of failures behind these, which people don't talk about. Like the best experience that I learned was all the stuff that failed. Personally, in my career, where I thought I was on the right path, and then I realized, okay, a year into it, okay, this is not the right thing for me. But also just building wrong products for the wrong market, for the wrong customer, and burning millions of dollars trying to get to a market that wasn't there. Also, the other point is, it seems like a nice, planned career path, but it's full of chaos. Like today, I'm at this company called Electriphi, so I'm the founder and CEO there. And if you would have told me a year ago that, Mufi, you're going to be a founder and CEO of this company, I would have said, no way. But here I am now, And so part of this is you can plan your career, but there are these inflection points that you've got to see that opportunity and you jump at that opportunity. And I'll give you some sort of insights in terms of how I think about jumping at opportunities. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to pause in between for questions. So if you have questions, just hold the thought. It'll just help me keep going and won't break the flow. But you can, when you have questions, I'll pause. So let me first start with thinking about startups and mature companies. So as a product manager, or actually as anybody in a sort of early stage or mid stage of the career, there are some really interesting things when you look at a startup versus looking at a big company. And one of the ways I like to think about it is with a startup, there is this difference between known and unknown. So when you go into a startup in the early stages, almost 90% of it is unknown. In a mature company, it's kind of flipped because you know a lot of things already. The company's been around for a few years, maybe half a decade, maybe decades. So you're working in a very different sort of set. So what do I mean by unknown? So, in a startup, sometimes you don't know who your customers are. You don't know who your competitors are. You don't know what their pain points are. And you don't know how the landscape is going to change. And that's the beauty of the startup because you're dealing with all these unknowns. And if you can find an awesome opportunity, that's the game changer. One of the, so with a startup, and you get the Silicon Valley reference. Does anybody watch Silicon Valley? It's an awesome show. Sometimes it's too real because for those who've been in the Valley and been in a startup, it comes very close to reality. There's a really interesting sort of evolution of roles, right? So when you start really early on, especially when you're just two founders or three founders or something like that, and a couple of people, it's a very multidisciplinary team. You do many things. So I'm the CEO, so to speak, but then I've got to run to Home Depot and buy paint for the office as well, and coffee is running out, I buy that as well. But all those roles start to evolve as you get more momentum and the company builds. But the teams are usually very flat. You don't have too much hierarchy, and you don't want too much hierarchy. You want really flat teams, maybe 2-3 people, and you work really at the same level, even though you may have different titles, but you're really part of that core team. And the roles also evolve very quickly because, yes, I'm the CEO, but I've been the CEO for 8 months now. But now I know I need a marketing person because I've done enough marketing that I cannot take it on further. So I've got a marketing guy now. The same thing sort of evolved. So our CTO was, when he started off the first few months, he was writing code himself. Now he's at a point where, okay, now I need to build out a team. I need to have an engineer, machine learning, data science here, and things like that. One of the key things is human dynamics because when you're only 3 people and you don't agree on things, then those things are going to go south very quickly. And basic things like how much equity do you have, who owns what % of the company, and these decisions usually happen very quickly if the human dynamics are right. So so my co-founder and I, we spent a couple of hours together, and then in a month he was on board, and our equity discussion was 10 minutes. What are you looking for? Here's the cap table. This is what I'm looking for, and that was done. It was like basically a handshake and you're on, right? It's those types of things that move the discussion forward because it's not about money and equity and percentages. It's about, do you believe in the bigger idea? And if you believe in the bigger idea, then 15% stake or 25% stake, that doesn't really matter because if it's big, it'll be big. If it's not, 5% is not going to move anything because it's worth nothing at the end of the day. But getting that level of understanding early in the game really creates some really interesting dynamics. And then quick decisions as well. So we make decisions on the fly. We don't have a big committee to deal with. You get in the room or get on the phone and say, hey, I heard this from the customer. What do you think? And we brainstorm. Done, move on. So why can't large companies be as innovative as startups? And Steve Blank, if you don't know who Steve Blank is, he's an icon in Silicon Valley. He was there right from the early stages, before Intel and things like that. And one of the things that he says is startups can do anything, which is really interesting and within some interesting bounds. Because if you got the Theranos story, that's on the other extreme. I wouldn't go that far. But there are a lot of things that you can do as a startup that a big company cannot. So let me give you an example. So when we launched on Ouya, we had 65,000 customer orders all over the world, about 110 countries across the world. And I went to the CEO, or I called her and I said, listen, we cannot ship to 110 countries because you have to get all the regulatory approvals. And this was a hardware product, right? So you need to get the local FCC approvals or whatever that is. And she was like, no, just put a evaluation only label and ship it. And that's the way you do it, right? Now, if I was at an Amazon or an HP, there was no way I could ship that product out till I got approval in all those countries. So there are those rules where you can break and push the limits where a big company cannot. And that's the fundamental reason why startups will always thrive, is they can do what big companies will never dare to do. Okay, mature companies gets very interesting because now you're in a very different play because you've got a highly structured organization, and you need that. You need that because now the assumption is that you got revenue rolling, you got customers that you got to keep happy, and so you need some process and structure around it. So you typically will have focused roles. You have your C-level, VP level, director level, and all that kind of stuff. And then as the organization grows, the layers start to increase. In big companies, because there are so many people and there's just so many roles and stuff like that, doing a good job is, of course, necessary, but it's not sufficient. So not only do you have to do a good job, but you got to market yourself within the company as well. Getting visibility in terms of what you're doing, being in the right place at the right time, getting the right mentors as well within the company is all sort of playing into your career path. Okay? So there is this concept of a list, and different companies will call it different things. But basically, every well-run company has a succession planning list. Like the VP at his or her level will be, one of their objectives will be, what's your succession plan? Like, how are you looking to grow employees? Right? So they go, okay, I've got 50 employees, and these are the leaders in my organization, right? And so they have a list. Your first objective to climb up is to get on that list. So when I started, looking at my career growth, I didn't know that something like this existed. And I attended a sort of career growth session, and they said, well, you need to be on the list. And I'm like, what's the list? So this is the list where people who are going to get promoted get on that sort of chain. The interesting thing is, if you think about jobs that are posted, like in your companies, you'd see a director level or senior director level job posted. What is happening behind the scenes, in most cases, is somebody already's got the job. So this is what happened with me, right? I found out about the concept of this list, and I went to my manager and I said, I want to be on the list. And he said, yeah, sure, I can put you on the list. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, there is a list now. Awesome. And so that validated the first thing. And he was like, yeah, there's a list. Of course there's a list. What do you mean? Yeah. So that was one. The second was, he said, you need to achieve some things. Right? So I said, okay, you know what? And at that time I was an individual contributor, and I wanted to become a manager for whatever reason. And he said, okay, you got to achieve these 5 or 6 objectives, which was meeting some product deliverables and meeting some revenue goals, which in 6 months' time I did. Then I said, okay, good. Now I'm going to take this to HR because you're already on the list, and now we start the plan to get you promoted. I had a discussion with HR, and he came back and said, one last thing, can you write a job description? Because I need to post it on the internal portal so that we go through the process, right? So that job description was written by me for the job that I wanted to get. And so it was posted internally. They did the whole, we got 8 or 10 applicants, and Mufi is the best qualified because blah, 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 and I got the job. This story plays out pretty much everywhere in these companies, right? And it's a hard reality, but this is what happens, right? So when I talk about knowing the rules, these are the rules, right? Once you understand the rules, and the amazing thing is you just have to ask. The biggest mistake I made was I didn't ask. And if you don't ask, nobody. So when I first asked my manager, I said, I want to become a manager. His reaction was, oh, I didn't know that. Like, oh, really? I wanted to become a manager, for a long time, but I never said that. And I was always of the mindset that I'll do good work, and one day my manager is going to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, we just got promoted. It does not happen. It will never happen that way. It's a highly competitive market, and you got to play, understand the rules. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. Any questions?
Yeah. So basically, what you call the list is basically the list of people who get promoted. Did I get this right?
Yeah. So it's they call it different things. It's called a succession plan. It's called growth plan. They're called different things, but it's basically a list of names, right?
By whom? Do you define by whom?
So it depends on your organization and how flat it is. Like in our case, I was reporting to the VP of product management and marketing. So he had the whole marketing and product management team under him. And as part of their goals, they have, you got these revenue goals or these, product release goals, and you've got employee or career development goals for your team. So as part of that team, they say, my team is going to grow X. I'm going to have these 4 additional headcounts, and then these are the managers. And by the way, these are the people who are most, who have the leadership skills to go into those roles. So it's not, it's not a list that's maintained on a database somewhere. It's, somebody's written that on a post-it note somewhere, or it might be like in big companies, you have development plans that you upload into the system, right? So it'd be, development plan. These are the 4 employees that are most suitable to be promoted to the next level of leadership. It's also and this is actually true with any good organization, right? Because as part of the organization growth, it's all about employee growth as well, right? If we grow, we want to grow our employees, and there are folks who don't want to be managers at all. So there was one of the guys who ended up working for me. He was 10 years senior to me, but he was like, I never want to be a manager. I just don't want to deal with all of the issues that come with being a manager. So there are people who say, like, it's just too much. I just want to do my stuff, go home, that's it, right? So these lists exist everywhere. It's just, understand, talking the right language.
So are these lists exclusively for like management and people management positions, or do these also exist for individual contributor roles as you move up from associate towards distinguished?
So it gets a little fuzzier at those different levels. And one thing I want to caution, everything that I say is your mileage will vary depending on the organization. Every organization is slightly different. But the bigger concept here is there is a growth plan for the entire organization. And you need to understand what that growth plan is, and you get on the right side of that plan, right? Now, some organization may say, oh, no, there's no list, but there is a growth plan. There's a succession plan, there's a executive development plan. All those words really mean the same thing. One is I want to be on that plan, whatever that plan is, and here's my objective, to become a manager or a leader or a VP. And my recommendation is shoot for hire. You say, I would go and tell my manager, if he asks me what my career plan is to get your job, because I'm hoping that you become the CEO or the general manager, so that I can take your job, right? And I'll give you some more tips on how you do that. But so the meta point here is understand that there's a bigger plan in the company. These companies don't operate without a plan. You have to have the plan, and understanding there is a plan and inserting yourself into it, that's the magic. So I'm going to pause and I'll switch into product management and why. So, a lot of folks that have come to my class are from non-product management careers. They come from finance or engineering or sales, and they say, I want to become a product manager. I'm like, great, why? Right? And this is a really interesting question, because this is the underpinning to everything that you do as a product manager. As you start thinking about becoming a product manager and you start transitioning into product manager, the first thing is in your head, you have to have full clarity of why you want to do that. And once you have that clarity, then the whole process becomes much easier. Let's start with how do you get that process going with yourself, right? So what I did was, when I became a product manager, I kind of stumbled into it because I was in market research, and I used to spend a lot of time with product managers, and I was just in awe of what they did. And these guys are awesome. They have, they have this fantastic job. They do all these, fun things. They get to present in terms of people, and I want to do that, right? So the question is, before you even start thinking about it, ask yourself what I call the 5 whys, right? And it's, why do you want to be a product manager? Why this particular product, right? Because you can do anything that you want, but why this product? Why this company? So if you want to become a product manager at Apple, why Apple, right? And within Apple, you want to become a product manager for, say, the iPhone team or the MacBook team or something like that. Why that product? And then why that particular job, right? So when you're thinking about applying for a job, just sort of step back and answer these whys. And there is no one good answer for this. These answers will be something that you are comfortable with yourself. Like, can you be honest with yourself and say, why do you really want to become a product manager? And is it to make more money? Okay, make more money, that's great. But you got to understand the other side of that the equation as well. Or it could be, in my case, it was being an owner for the whole experience. So taking something from concept to shipping, that's something that gives me a whole lot of joy. And I can do it over and over and over again. And that's why, to me, it's like, okay, anything that I do will be awesome because, and I started in the consumer space. So the awesome thing is you spend 2 years building a product, and then you can, in that time, you can go to a Best Buy and say, I was behind that product and I know exactly what happened to bring it to market, right? So it's what motivates you is completely sort of specific to you, but having that clarity will help you answer a lot of the questions that come down the line. So, okay, so next is now we get into a little bit of tactical stuff. It's like, okay, now you got a good clarity of why you want to become a product manager. So how does the interview process work, right? So any questions? I'm going to pause here. No? Okay.
Yeah, what was the why for you?
So why for me, and actually the interesting thing is my why keeps evolving over time, right? And
so how did it evolve also?
Yeah, that's actually an awesome question. So the why keeps evolving because we all learn as a human being, right? Mm-hmm. And my first why when I first started was these guys are high profile, awesome guys. Everybody runs around product managers. I want to have that that authority, right? And of course, once you get that, you go, holy shit, this is so painful, right? You're standing in front of all these people trying to sell a product, sell a concept vision, and they're all ready to shoot you down, which is the painful part. But then on the flip side, they all, when it's all done, you look back and go, oh, this is such an awesome experience, right? And then, then you start to get sort of deeper and deeper into what you're doing as a product manager. So my argument is this: everybody is a product manager, every one of us, right? And the most important product that you're building is your career. You think about it, right? Your career is a product which is of your own making. Your personal relationships are a product as well, right? With your loved ones, with kids, whatever, that's another product. So at a very fundamental level, every human being is a product manager. At least that's my perspective, right? Then if you're building a physical product, you're building a relationship, you're building a service, all of that are just mechanics, right? So that's my evolution of, like I will always be a product manager. Even though I'm a CEO, I'm still a product manager, whether I like it or not, because I'm still involved in the weeds. I still scream at my team when I see a pixel out of shape because it just makes me crazy when I see stuff weirdly. But that's something that motivates you, and either it does or it doesn't. And there's something that makes us all very different as human beings, and that's the beauty of everything. So was that?
How did it evolve?
So it evolved. So first it was just the sheer sort of joy. Then it was okay, this is too painful. There has to be something bigger. Then now it's evolved into. So that was the first level, and the next level was evolved into just the whole process of learning and working with people. Mm-hmm. Because with the biggest characteristic of a product manager is how do you work with people around you. And so then I started to kind of understand, okay, it's not just shipping products out, it's basically working with that team and getting a team that is completely disjointed into a well-oiled machine. That is really the awesomeness of a product manager. Now, so that was the second level. Then it evolved into I want to make a big difference to whatever I do, right? So, like I'm at a e-mobility clean transportation startup, and one of the things that I look at is okay, if you're successful, then we'll enable a big impact on climate change, on global warming and things like that, right? So now my sort of goals have shifted to a longer horizon. Now, like okay, when I look back, it'll be like this is the most awesome startup that I was because it was not about money, it was not about making a name for myself. It was making an impact at a much bigger scale. So, and I think that's it's an evolution as we all mature as human beings, because as we get older, I guess we get smarter as well and start to look at the big picture. So there's a lot more to it, but I'm going to pause here and just continue. So now I'll talk a little bit about the mechanics. This is all the tactical stuff that happens in an interview. And one of the things that, and so a lot of this experience comes from interviewing hundreds of product managers myself. When I was at Amazon, I was interviewing like literally every other day, because even now actually Amazon is a tear in terms of hiring people. And so we never stop hiring product managers. And I learned a lot interviewing for Amazon, and then also interviewing on the other side to understand how, what people do and don't do. And the thing that baffles me is a lot of people don't do research about what job in the company and they are applying for. So, for instance, now you have awesome resources like LinkedIn and Google searches and all that kind of stuff, where you can get a good idea of what the team is, what the product is, what the company is, before you even step to the door. So what I would do is, if you get close to getting to an interview, even before you get a phone screen or something like that, research everything about that job. The moment you see that job posted on LinkedIn or whatever, or you get invited through, say, the Google Recruiter or something like that, find out everything about the job. Ask the recruiter who the hiring manager is, what are the things that they're looking for, what is that group that's hiring, and you'll be surprised how much information there is available, right? So one of the things that I use is, if you're in the consumer product space, right? One easy way to figure out what is wrong with the product is go to Amazon and look at the product, and typically you'll see those 5-star reviews, right? Between 3 and 5 stars, something like that. Look at the 1-star reviews on Amazon, right? For that particular product, and you'll find all the sort of meaty stuff of what you can do to improve the product, right? Like at Amazon, whenever you launch a product, you would watch this number of stars, and if the stars are anything less than 4, then it'll be like chaos in the company. Like why is it less than 4 stars, right? And so we would go through each 1-star review and figure out what is this customer complaining about. Sometimes it's, okay, this product is terrible, the UI is terrible, and this is specific things. Or it could be, the product's awesome, but I'm calling support, nobody picks up the phone, right? But those are awesome things when you go into the interview and say, you know what, these are 3 things that are wrong with the product, and I think I know how to fix it. The point about this is not being super knowledgeable about the product, but the point is that you're demonstrating to the other side that you're really passionate about what these guys are doing, and you've done your research. You've found not only things about the product, but also about the people as well, right? So typically what will happen is, before the interview, the recruiter will send you a list. These are the 5 people you'll be talking to. From 2:30 to 3:30, 3:30 to 4:30, blah, blah, blah. Look them up on LinkedIn. Just see if you've got connections, that's awesome. You can talk to your connections and say, who's this guy? Can you tell me about something more about him or her? But see what schools they've gone to, see what products they've shipped, and try to sort of understand them as people as well. Because ultimately, you're people talking to people. The more you learn about them, and the more you find personal connection, the better it is. So number one, do as much research as you can, and most candidates that I've interviewed fail on this front. They just don't bother to do the research, which tells me that they're not interested. They just hear because they want Amazon name or whatever name they want, right? So 3 steps to question. Can you just hold that
Sure.
when I go at the transition? We can. So any guesses where this is a IKEA. All right. So typically, what happens is in most sort of job processes, you have this phone screen where first the recruiter will call you and say, hey, there's something interesting here. Is there a match? Let me do a phone screen with somebody in the team. Phone screen is about 30 to 40 minutes. And the idea there is this candidate worth bringing in and going through the whole process, right? So they look for some sort of high-level things like, okay, is he interested in this job? What is his background? What is the personality? And you can do only so much over the phone screen, but that could be a make or break. So you got to prepare for the phone screen, and even at this case, you can get some idea of who's going to interview you. Then, if everything goes well with the phone screen, then it's an on-site. Typically, it'll be a half a day with back-to-back interviews. And then the team comes together. the interviewing team comes together. Depending on the different types of company, they have a debrief or a discussion internally, and then they say make an offer or don't make an offer. Every company has a slightly different process to do that. Some companies are really bad, where they say, you send out an email saying, hey, is it a hire or no hire? And the first guy says no hire, and everybody says no hire, and the fourth one says hire, which is a terrible process. Good companies keep a blind sort of input process where everybody enters their feedback, but you don't see other people's feedback. And so that way your feedback is unbiased. And then Amazon has a very interesting sort of process where they have this individual called a bar raiser. So bar raiser is somebody who's trained in driving this debrief process. So typically, say if 5 people interview you at Amazon, they'll all get together, and then this bar raiser will sort of chair the meeting. And it's okay, everybody go through, and so everybody enters the feedback into the system. And then you say, okay, and it's usually a scale of 1 to 5. Strongly inclined or strongly disinclined, and then 1 to 5. And you say, okay, well, you're inclined, why? You're not inclined, why? You're neutral, why? No, actually it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, there's no middle. And then they go through, and then the bar raiser will kind of challenge the people. Okay, you're inclined, but this guy's saying he's not inclined, and things like that. But it's a very interesting process because it kind of levels everybody, and then they all agree. Okay, maybe I didn't see it from that perspective. Maybe I saw that perspective. Let's make an offer. Or I was inclined, but after hearing all these people, I'm not inclined as well. Things like that. And so then that will result in an offer and things like that. And so then the process continues. Every interview basically comes down to 3 questions that they want to answer, and they come at it at very different ways. They ask a bunch of questions about your past, about what you will do in these situations, why you're here, things like that. But fundamentally, it's 3 questions. One is, can you actually do the job or not? And it doesn't matter depending on the job that if you have that domain expertise or not, but can you translate your existing experience to something new? That's one. The second is, do you really want to be here? Like, are you here because of the name or because of the title or whatever? Or is there something more deeper? And this goes back to know everything about the company, because the product and the team is, do you fundamentally have an interest in being there? And then the third and the last, which is actually most important, is do we want you to be here as well? So in my last job, I was hiring for a technical writer. And I saw his resume and I'm this is awesome. This guy fits the bill perfectly. And I skipped the phone interview. I said, no, just bring him in. And there were 4 interviews set up. And then the way it actually got set up was I was the last guy. And my manager was the first guy, and there were 2 other people. And so my manager interviewed. And after the interview, I went and talked to him, what do you think? And he said, I sent him home. Why? Because he's not a fit. He's not going to fit with the company. I see the resume, I see everything else, but the first words that came out of his mouth was no, you're not a fit here. And so he said, I don't want to waste anybody's time, I sent him home. And that's a very fundamental thing, is if you may be the most awesome candidate on paper, but if you don't fit that culture or you don't fit that what they're looking for, it's not completely, everything is kind of useless. So that's the one thing you want to learn is, do they want you here as well? Then the next question that we talk about is smarts. Do you think about things beyond just the day-to-day stuff, right? So one of the questions I would ask is, give me a product that you've seen or used and tell me why it's an awesome product, right? And don't tell me it's an iPhone or an iPad or something like that. I don't want a technology product, right? So the example I use is a Dyson vacuum cleaner, right? I mean, a vacuum cleaner is the most mundane product you can think of, right? But if you think about it deeply, it's an awesome product, right? So, and the vacuum cleaner industry has been 70 years old, and before Dyson, think about it before Dyson, right? All the vacuum cleaners are like gray, black boxes with these long cables, and you have to deal with bags and stuff like that. And then Dyson comes up with this, awesome tornado technology, which sucks in a good way, and they just reinvented the whole market, right? So they came in at the highest end. You're buying a $150 vacuum cleaner, we sell you a $500 vacuum cleaner, and we'll make a killing doing it. And they changed the whole concept, right? So like basic things like, you walk down the aisle, say a Target or something like that, and you see a gray, black, and you see an orange, red, purple, and you're like, what the hell is this? Is this a vacuum cleaner? What's it doing here, right? Beautiful design, a lot of thought through things like the quality of the cable, how you take out the canister, and how you plug it in, like beautifully thought through, right? And to me, it's like, okay, they just reinvented an entire industry which was like stagnating for 20, 30 years. And you could find awesome examples like these, which are, it's got nothing, I mean, there's some technology here, but beyond that, it's not like, oh, it's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. No. But it's just reshaped an entire industry. Now, the story behind Dyson is that first he had this awesome technology, and he went to Hoover, right? And he went to the Hoover management team and said, I've got the patented technology, which is like 10x better than yours. And guess what? It doesn't even need bags. And the Hoover guys were like, no, thank you, but we are not in the vacuum cleaner business, we are in the bags business. So if you're going to disrupt our business, no way, right? And so he formed the company himself, and then everything is history. Interestingly, Dyson is getting into electric vehicles as well, which is a whole different, interesting sort of trajectory. But if you think about it, electric vehicle is motor and battery. That's what they're into, right? So, interesting story there. And then the last one is really about execution. Like, show me how you took a product from concept to market. All of the different steps. How did you get to customer validation? How did you get your first MVP? How did you evolve that MVP based on customer feedback? At what point did you say, okay, we're ready and ship the product? And this gives you the details. So if you're a hardware product manager, you know the product stages, EVT, PVT, DVT, blah, blah, blah. If you're a software product manager, you have MVP, beta, alpha, product release, and then you get into your agile sprint or whatever. This is also again, what's your most challenging product, and tell me the process that you followed and what happened when the process broke. So there is this awesome video on, it's a TED talk by Amy Cuddy, and I would highly recommend you watch this. It's called Fake It Till You Make It. And it's a phenomenal, I think it's one of the highest viewed TED talks. And she talks about her own story, which is incredibly, it's an incredibly passionate story. And I mean, when I heard about it, I almost teared up. But there's some interesting sort of learnings in here. And there is a really sort of deep tie to us as human beings, right? So there is this concept of mind and body. And we say, well, your mind affects your body. So if you think negative thoughts, you don't feel good. But the reverse is true as well. So if you do certain things, your mind also starts to think positive. And this has got sort of deep roots into sort of human psychology and physiology. So one of the things she talks about is this power pose, right? So basically, this pose that you kind of keep your chest open, arms out, and they did a study where they had two groups, like a blind study, but they had two groups. One group was basically asked to sit for about 5 minutes this way, so they crouched up in a sort of very negative position, and the other group was basically asked to stand this way. That's it, right? And then they were all asked to interview for a job, and there was a set of interviewers who didn't know the background of any of these people. And interestingly, the people who had this pose came across as being more confident, more likely to get the job. And so the point here is that this power pose can have a pretty interesting effect in terms of your psychology. So one of the things I do is, and still do when I go into big meetings or things like that, is just do this power pose. And you can do this when you're sitting in the car before the interview, go to the restroom, stand there for 3 minutes like this. It has an amazing effect. And there is a deep sort of physiology to this as well. Is when sort of the prehistoric stage, the sort of the early man, the body would send signals to your mind, right? So if you were under attack, you would be basically like trying to protect yourself, trying to protect your sort of vital organs, and it would send signals to the brain saying you're in a danger situation. Do everything to protect yourself. As opposed to if you're up for a fight, then you're like, okay, now you're in an aggressive situation, you can go and beat this, right? So your body is sending signals to your head, And you can use this to kind of trick your mind into changing that, getting rid of the nervousness. So when you're going into an interview, you have this nervousness thing, just do this for 3 or 4 minutes and it'll just change everything. All your dynamics will change. And then a lot of it is also, faking it till you make it, right? So you start thinking about all of the positive things that will happen in the interview. Like you can go into the interview thinking, I'm going to boss this because I heard all these things about, I talked to all these people and said, oh, it's going to be a very challenging interview. Google is extremely challenging. They ask all these random questions and they try to make you uncomfortable. Or you talk to people who are like positive. No, if Google calls you, that means you got a great shot at it and make it happen, right? So sit down and kind of project yourself in terms of what is the best scenario of this is going to happen. You'll love all the people you talk to. You'll have an awesome conversation. You'll make a personal connection with everybody. So play it out in your mind. And this is actually used by a lot of athletes. So did you guys see the Winter Olympics? So one of the things that they do when they do these high-speed slalom runs is, if you notice that they'll wait there for like a minute. And what they're actually doing is they're replaying the entire course in their head. Because they've done this like hundreds of times, right? So they just wait there and they replay the whole thing in their mind and know, okay, this is my perfect run. And then they stop the run, right? And this is it's like an awesome psychological trick because the fundamental thing here is our minds don't know what is real and what's imaginary. That is a fundamental truth. We don't know what is real and imaginary because everything that is coming at us, like what we believe is real, is not actually real because your eyes filter things down because like there's this room here, but I've got like blind vision here, so something happens here, I don't even see it because I'm focused on you guys, and then your brain dumps it down even further because all this information is coming to me and I'm just trying to put everything into pattern boxes, right? And so the more you can get into the mode of telling your mind this is actually real, this is happening now, the more you can get into a positive frame of mind. So there's a lot of deep psychology related to this, but it's these are the little things that you can use to your advantage. And then it's also changing your lexicology. Like how do you change your the words that you use? For instance, never use but. So for example, it was a extremely challenging product, but we somehow managed to get the team together. That's one. It was an extremely challenging product, and we managed to get the team together, right? Sometimes it might not even make sense grammatically, but take the but out and put an and into it, and it changes the tone of the whole conversation. The next is, how many times have you been through these types of interviews where you're like, 2 hour, 3 hour block, right? Sometimes the interviewer will ask you, do you want to get coffee or something like that? Mm-hmm. Say yes, right? There's a few interesting things that happen. One is you're sitting, typically you're sitting in a conference room, right? It's a closed conference room, and so you kind of, you're 2 interviews in, so it's getting like, it gets a little weird after a while. So you want to get out of the room first, right? So you say, yeah, let's get some coffee, let's go to the kitchen or something like that, right? Now, psychologically, there's one interesting thing that happens. When you step into the interview room, I'm an interviewer, you're the interviewee. Now, suddenly we step out of the room, then you're like, I'm just getting you coffee. So let's go and have a chat. And suddenly you can build a nice personal rapport. The other interesting thing is you get a chance to just walk around and see what's happening there, right? Like you walk around, you go to, especially in smaller companies, there is a kitchen, the people hanging around the kitchen. What is the general sort of vibe there? Are people laughing and having fun, or are people sulking? Are there a lot of empty chairs, or is the place packed where people are like falling over each other? If there are empty chairs, you can ask, what's going on? Is it a new office, or are people leaving? What's going on? And the other psychological trick is, if somebody does you a favor, the mind tells them, I like this person. Because I did you a favor, I got you coffee, so I like you. And getting coffee is good anyway, because just if you're like a caffeine addict like me, it's an awesome kicker to get you going. So one of the interesting things that happened to me was that I tried this in every interview. So like midway through my interview process, I said, yeah, let's get some coffee. I want to stretch my legs and stuff like that. Went to the coffee room, we were just chatting. This guy comes by. Like, hey, I've never seen you around. Are you new here? I'm like, no, I'm just interviewing for this job. And this guy was like, yeah, why you guys have a conversation while I was making me a cappuccino. I'll make the cappuccino, why don't you chat? He and I have a great conversation, and he's like, oh, awesome. And I'm like, what do you do here? And he's like, I'm the CEO. Oh, okay, well, good to know. And so anyway, the conversation is done. We go back into the interview room. And then, so the way the interview was structured was talk to these 4 or 5 people. And then my manager, who was the CTO at that time, he said, and the next interview was supposed to be with the CEO. And I said, I met him afterwards. And I said, my next interview is with the CEO. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. He already talked to you and he's given a thumbs up. So there are all these interesting things that can happen when you're just walking around the office. So take the break. Now, of course, use your judgment. You don't want to take a break with every interviewer because it gets a little weird. But use this strategically. The next question is also around, you always have these questions. Like, if they ask me this question, then I don't know how to answer it. For instance, people like, I took a break for a year and I just did what I wanted to do. And I always worried about, okay, people go, why did you take a break? Were you fired? Were you burnt out or things like that? So always be ready with that question. And the best way to address that question is bring it up yourself. And sort of calm the audience in terms of, yeah, oh, by the way, this is my resume. Oh, yeah, there's this thing that I took a break for a year. It was an awesome way for me to just unwind, relax, open my mind and stuff like that. So you take in the question on your terms and you answer that question as well. So that it takes all the friction away because, oh yeah, okay, he's aware of this probable thing where, or you changed 3 jobs in 3 years, what's going on? Well, in job 1 this happened, in job 2 that happened, in job 3 this happened. But it was kind of planned because I was looking to move up and blah, blah, blah. But position yourself so that you can answer it. So that's the best way to avoid getting anxious about those questions that kind of trip you off. And then, of course, there is no guarantee all of this would work. If this would all work for everybody, then I would be very rich just selling this. But there will always be rejection for whatever reason, right? Maybe you are not on the list anyways, right? So you went through all of this, but too bad somebody's name was already on it. Always ask why. Because there's no downside. You can ask the recruiter, what happened? Can you tell me what happened? And the worst case, they will say, no, can't tell you anything. Or they say, you know what, this manager thought something differently, or he had a little issue there, or something like that. You always get something to learn. So always ask why. Worst case will be like no answer. So, okay, the first thing that I would do is talk to 5 product managers. Different product managers from different companies. Either they're in your social circle or in your own company or whatever. And ask them 5 questions, right? And these questions could be, what do you do as a product manager? What are things that you like about product management? What do you dislike? Why did you become a product manager? What was your career path? How did you get this job? Are you hiring? Do you need help? All those types of questions. So the thing here is you talk to 5 by 5, you'll get 25 awesome responses. That's your market research right there with a set of product managers. And it'll really help you understand if you actually want to do this or not. Like I've had students who've done this. He said, oh, I had a student who wrote an email to me and she said, I did this 5 by 5 and I don't think this is for me. Great. At least now you know without going through the whole pains of becoming a product manager and year 1 into it, this is just not for me because I cannot take the pressure or I cannot take all the visibility and things like that, right? So this is an awesome part because it will give you insights into how a product manager thinks and then how do you fit yourself into that story. So that's one. The second is most people want to say, okay, I'm an engineer here or a business development guy here or an analyst here and I'm going to apply in that company as a product manager. It's always challenging. Most recruiters will tell you, take it one step at a time, right? You switch the company or you switch your career path. But doing both is very hard to pull off for a variety of reasons, right? Like if I'm hiring somebody, I need a product manager because I don't have room to train somebody right now and get up to speed. So I'm going to get maybe an inexperienced product manager, but somebody who's got a little bit of experience. But if I had somebody who I hired as an engineer and then he evolved into product management, okay, that's an interesting thing because, okay, the guy's already here and he's taking on some jobs, some product management stuff, and then slowly evolve into product management. So look for positions where you are right now.